Okay, so it looks like we're live now. And hi, everybody. I'm Michael Harris, and I wanted to say good morning, co-creators. Uh, we're going to be talking about triggers today, and I'm actually going to use notes today, so it's going to be kind of fun. Triggers are a really popular word today. There's actually books out there called Triggered, and you see stuff on Facebook, trigger warning, and all this stuff. And this is what we used to call anchors when I was learning NLP in the 80s. And they're basically all there are conditioned emotional responses that we have to certain sights, certain sounds, or certain emotional experiences that we have. And it's kind of gotten to be okay for people to go, oh my God, I've been triggered. And it's like, when are we going to start taking responsibility about managing our emotions when we are in close proximity to other people? Because what I'm hoping is that your desire is the same as mine, is that we are in a really close environment with our friends, with our families, with our loved ones, and I'm hoping that we will develop a deeper level of communication rather than getting further and further away. And I'm going to talk about several ways about managing triggers over the next couple of days. And I thought I'd just say, that I had an experience last night. Hang on, let me check, make sure my feed is working. Yes, it is. And I had an experience last night. I was talking to somebody, and it was kind of like a triple shot. There were, it was like a left hook and a right hook and then an uppercut and stuff, because the person I was talking to, they said something, and then they had an expression on their face, and then they laughed because they were making a joke. And like almost instantaneously, I was no longer talking to that person. I was having a triggered response based on an event that was kind of ongoing when I was a kid. And I called that person this morning and said, thank you, for letting me know that that button was there, and I'm going to disconnect it this afternoon, because I don't want somebody to walk up and go, whether it's intentionally or unintentionally. I want to manage my emotions. Okay, so anchors or triggers are conditioned emotional responses. I mean, if you think about your favorite song, or think about a movie or a book that you really like, and it invokes a series of feelings. That's why people watch the same movies over and over again, is because they have a specific response that they like or that they don't like. And we do that stuff all the time. One of my favorite things is, like, I went to school in the 70s, so I got a whole bunch of friends of mine from high school that they probably don't remember high school all that well because they were high all the time. So these emotional responses, or these learnings that we have, are what we call state dependent learning. So if you're in a happy mood, you can probably remember all of the things that you were really happy about. If you're in a bad mood, you can remember all of the things that you can remember when you were in a bad mood. And that's just how our brains process information. So I want to talk about triggers or anchors from the aspect of three different ways. Okay. And what we're going to do today is called lengthening your movie, and I'll be doing that for the rest of the movie. But the second thing, and what I'm going to be talking about tomorrow, is a process in which you have a memory that no longer serves you, and I'm going to show you a way to just absolutely wear that memory out, so that you have an opportunity to make a new choice, or just get rid of it completely because it no longer serves you. And then the third one is based on a book that I recently read called The Power of TED. And it will give you another way of processing your anchors or your emotional triggers based on rather a conscious process rather than an unconscious process. Okay, so let's start with lengthening your movie. Okay, and this this technique basically comes from Richard Bandler, who's the co-founder of NLP, and he loves to tell this story at events. And, you know, it doesn't really matter if it's true or not because, you know, hypnotic metaphor. But he said that he was staying in a hotel room and he hears this big ruckus next door down the hallway. So he, you know, he goes down the hall and knocks on the door, and the guy cracks the door open and looks outside. And he looks really, really freaked out. And Bandler goes, you know, can I come in? And the guy lets him in. And this hotel room is just completely, completely wrecked. And what he says in a really calm voice is, you know, the police are coming. And if you calm down and you act reasonably, you're probably going to go to jail for a little while. But if you don't calm down, you're probably going to go to prison for a really long while. And he's just talking to this guy and trying to get him to think about not just what is happening in the moment, but think about his actions in a more long-term method. Now, I'm pretty sure this guy was on drugs or whatever it is, but you don't have to be on drugs to have this type of response. I mean, I've seen people who just, you know, 1 minute they're okay and they're insanely angry, or they're crying, or they're bereft, or they are having some type of an emotional response. And there's no drugs involved. Your brain manufactures all of the drugs that you ever needed to manufacture these emotions. So he's telling this guy to imagine the worst possible scenario where he does go to prison, you know, and then his wife divorces him. And when he gets out of prison, you know, he's not allowed to see his kids ever. And this story just continues on and on. He loses his job. He doesn't have to play a place to live. He has to live on the street, you know, and you know, then he really starts drinking or doing drugs, and his health begins to fail, or just getting worse and worse and worse until the point where he's just lying in the gutter. And he's just about to pass away. He's just about to shuck his mortal coil. And at that exact moment, this dog comes up and pees in his face. Now, I know that that sounds kind of crazy, but basically what he's done, and what I've done while you were listening, is lengthened this movie to the point where it's a worst case scenario. And in general, I don't do worst case scenarios. But in this particular case, it's the most effective way to get you to threshold. And threshold is a very, very effective way to get the mind to interrupt whatever pattern that you're doing. When people get triggered, they're having an experience of whatever it is that they are feeling or saying or seeing or hearing. And that loop just kind of stays there. That's why they call it triggered. Okay. And by lengthening your movie, you might get an opportunity to see a possible consequence of continuing this behavior. And the reason that it continues going in the momentum or going in the direction that it's going is because it's very difficult to get people to go stop and then go back to whatever good mood that they were in, because they kind of need to take it all the way down to the bottom and then they can come back up. And people don't really think about that. They just do whatever it is that they do because that's what they've done. Okay. And what this technique will do is get you to start looking outside of yourself, getting out of your emotions or getting out of the experience that you're having, and taking a look around to see how other people are responding to whatever it is that is triggering you. Okay, so let's do this again. Just think about something that normally would get you all wound up. Okay, and don't pick the worst thing. Just pick something, you know, like somebody leaves a water glass, you know, on the table without a coaster. You know, something that just makes you go grr instead of getting real angry. Okay, think about this behavior and start moving towards your worst case scenario. okay? And you've got your water glass, on the coffee table, and it makes a ring, and you make a big fuss, and finally your spouse goes, "That's it, I've had enough," and they file for divorce. Or your adult or teenage children who are there, they just make this decision, to never speak to you again. How would that feel? I mean, what would be your response? And just take a moment and think about that. Okay, so let's rewind the movie again. There's a water glass or whatever it is that you've decided, and then it escalates and escalates and escalates and escalates. It goes to the worst case scenario. Your spouse files for divorce. Your children, your teenagers never speak to you. And if you play this movie over and over a couple of times, notice how you feel. Hopefully you'll notice your response, your internal response. You're going, "No, I don't want to do that again." Okay. Step out of the movie, rewind it to the beginning of the movie plus 1 second. Okay. So it's 1 second before whoever it was set that water glass down. And before you have the response that you normally have, I want you to have this other response that we just created. You're like, "Whoa, wait a second. This is a water glass. We can move it. We can get a coaster. We could get a new coffee table." So what we've done is we've interrupted this pattern. And once you've interrupted the pattern, you can insert whatever feeling that you want to have instead. You could feel good. You could find amusement. Maybe you've heard this, the adage, "Oh, one day we're going to laugh about this." Well, if one day we're going to laugh about this, why don't we laugh about it now? Okay. Why don't we just practice lengthening our movie to the point where we go, "No, I'm not going to do that anymore. That just Okay, so I thought I'd go through the steps one last time before I say goodbye, because I don't know how long I've been on, but probably a while. Think about something that really gets you going. And think about what the conditions are. Somebody says something, or they have a certain expression on their face that means something to you from 10,000 years ago that they don't know anything about. And then take a moment and lengthen your movie and go through it, and go through it a couple times. For me, it takes like 3 times on average, but the average for normal humans is somewhere between 2 and 5 times of running your movie in a way that reminds you that you have a choice. You have a choice. You can choose to be happy. You can choose to be sad. You can choose to be angry. You could also choose to be completely neutral. I mean, I've used this technique on lots of occasions, which is why I said, when I think that I have disconnected it and I bump into a trigger or a button, I'm actually appreciative of the person who fired that off. And it's kind of a weird state, where you're feeling this emotional state here. Okay. And at the same time, I'm going, "Oh, I didn't know that was there in that way. Thank you very much for pointing that out, so it didn't accidentally get fired off at a really inappropriate time." Okay. So this technique works really well. That if you've got somebody that unintentionally fires off a trigger, thank them. Okay. Because the really, really fun part about NLP or coaching, or hypnosis, whatever you prefer, once you know about something, you can actually do something about it. You can't change stuff that you don't know about. Okay. But I do want to say the word change instead of fix, because you're not broken. You're not broken at all. You just have a strategy that acts in a certain way, and it gives you a predetermined response because that's the resources, that was the choices that you had. Well, we're grown-ups now, and now we have more choices. We can actually choose how we want to respond in a different way. Okay. So I'd like you to think about this, and what type of response do you want to have? Do you want to have automatic responses? Or, we've got some time now. Do you want to take a few minutes, and run through something? Okay, you did one. Okay. Now do one that really, really gets you fired up. Okay. And think about what the consequences of you doing, that same rote response that you've always done, and it makes people uncomfortable and it makes you feel bad and all this stuff. And lengthen your movie out to the worst case possible scenario. Make it crazy, where you could have lightning strike the tree out in front of your house, or whatever it is that you need, something that's going to wake you up and give you an opportunity to make a different choice. And like I said, if you need help with this, just send me an email, or message me on Facebook. And tomorrow I'll talk about the second step of this, and I'll see you later.